Shabbat Shalom. Cantor Goldstein and I are thrilled to mark this Shabbat morning with you with some prayer and study. As you can see, we are doing so from our own homes, next to each other in screen only, but as well in mind and spirit as we join our voices and our prayers together. We are thrilled you are with us, connecting our community as we are together apart this Shabbat. We turn to the words Sema Tovu, words that are on page 74 in our prayer book. The link to the prayer book is in the Facebook feed and on our website. You can join us from the text, join us from your hearts, from your knowledge, or just join with La, as Cantor Goldstein is fond of saying to us. Please sing with us.
Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael.
We turn to page 88 in our Sidurim, in our prayer books. On that page, we find words from the Mishnah, words often referred to as Elu Divarim, from the opening words of the text from the Mishnah, which remind us of the importance of our communal connections and our communal responsibilities, those which remain. We are still connected as community, even as we are in our own spaces. Please join with me if you are able, if you have the text in front of you. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. We turn to page 100, and we see Psalm 150, and we join in the ending words of that psalm in song, Kol HaNeshama Tehalel.
Hallelu, 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 hallelu. Kol haneshama tehalleluya, hallelu, hallelujah. Kol haneshama tehalleluya, hallelu, hallelujah, hallelu, 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 kol haneshama tehalleluya, hallelu, hallelujah, kol haneshama tehalleluya, hallelu, hallelujah.
In Torah, in the book of Deuteronomy, we find those famous words, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Those words of faith, those words that have linked our people over time and over miles, in times of joy, in times of challenge, every day. Shema is traditionally traditionally recited or sung twice a day. Let us join together in those words connecting us. Page 1.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
In Torah, when Moses' sister Miriam is stricken with leprosy, or a skin element called leprosy, he calls out El Na Rifanallah, God, please heal her. We have in our tradition prayers for healing, prayers for wholeness. And we have a tradition that changes with our times. We have that grounding in knowing that we have prayers for healing. The one petition we do make on Shabbat, other than simply hear our prayer. And we have prayers that grow with us and space in our prayer for Kavanah, that which is the outpouring of our hearts. So as we come to this morning's Shabbat observance, we are praying for so many. We are praying for those who are ill. We are praying for those who are ill, I should say, in body and in spirit. And we are praying for those who are caring for those who are ill, those on the front lines in the medical profession, those behind the scenes in the medical profession, and those who are enabling us to be nurtured and nourished. Food, with medicine, with research, with accessibility, with so much. I invite you to take for a moment, and whether you say it out loud in the privacy of your own space, or you write in the Facebook feed, or you hear the names in the quietness of your hearts, think about those for whom you're praying, those who need health, those who are providing health or nurturing health, those who are giving us healing and wholeness, striving mightily to do so. We pause for a few moments and then we'll join in the Shabbat. Join together in Mishaberach, a prayer for healing and wholeness.
Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak veYaakov. Mishaberach Imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Leah, Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer. 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 And bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your love. May the pain and loneliness we're feeling be diminished by the power of your love. Mi sheberach avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak veYaakov. Mi sheberach imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Leah, Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer. Hear our prayer. Hear our prayer. Hear our prayer. Hear our prayer.
You are fair.
And bless us as well. Baruch atah Adonai Rafeh Kolim. Praise be God who brings healing to the sick.
We pause for silent prayer and reflection, each of us coming to this time and space with the prayers of our hearts.
Ose shalom bimromav, Ose shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Israel, ve'imeru. Amen.
This Shabbat during Pesach, we turn to study. This morning we'll look at some words from the Haggadah and then bring us around in our study to some words from the special Torah portion for this Shabbat during Pesach. If you'd like to access the text sheet, it is in the notes in the Facebook feed, and it is also on our website, or you can just listen and I'll walk you through it. So there's a kind of a joke. I'm told by the children in my house I'm not funny, so I'm not really telling a joke, but there's a thing going around that says, Elijah's the perfect guest at our socially distanced Seders this year because he doesn't show up. Goldstein, you can pretend to laugh there. I don't know. Okay, I got a little smile. Right? Because every year we open the door and Elijah hasn't come. So it caused me to think, because I was reading this week, I was reading a brand new book called The Passover Haggadah, a biography. I know a biography about a book is funny, but an interesting history of the Haggadah and some other texts, teachings from dear friends and teachers of mine. And I began to think about Elijah. So if you look at the first text, and again, if you don't have it in front of you, I'm going to read them or paraphrase them. We read in the Haggadah as early or perhaps as late as the 11th or 12th century. We read about Elijah the prophet, Elijah the Tishbite, Elijah the Gileadite. Quickly in our day, let him come to us with the Messiah, David's descendant. So we find Elijah referenced somewhere around then. Elijah enters our liturgy after the Crusades. We'll come back to that. And following that explanation, a reference to Elijah, we have a very powerful piece that we don't tend to see in our Reform Haggadah. It says, pour out your wrath on the nations who do not know you, and on the countries who do not call upon you. So in the 11th, 12th centuries, we have this reference to Elijah, the harbinger of the Messiah, followed by this call to take out our vengeance on our enemies. As you might imagine, there are many Jews who have been uncomfortable with that second verse, Shvoch Ruchacha, and it has been taken out of many Haggadot over the years. What you might not know is that Elijah hasn't always been in our Haggadot. For many, it's remained straight through, but not always in our Reform movement. Actually, Cantor Goldstein and I were speaking about that earlier. as Rabbi Neil Gilman references in commentaries on the Haggadah, he says that Elijah's role in our tradition, as I mentioned, is to herald the coming of the Messiah. And as he and Rabbi Lawrence Hoffman, my teacher and advisor and mentor since I was a rabbinic student, Cantor Goldstein's as well, as Rabbi Gilman and Rabbi Hoffman have both written, Elijah doesn't enter our Jewish liturgy at all until after the Crusades. If you know anything about the Crusades or nothing about the Crusades, know that tremendous numbers of Jews were killed. Some other stuff happened, but that's sort of the simplicity for Jewish liturgy and ritual. So it was a time of great despair for Jews. And what happens is Elijah enters there. Why? No doubt to give us hope, to give us a sense that the Messiah could come, that there is a possible future of goodness, not just devastation and death. What's interesting is that Elijah enters our liturgy there in the Haggadah and in other liminal or transitional, uncertain times, as Rabbi Gilman references. Think about it. Elijah enters the liturgy for Brit Milah, for our bris, circumcision. Elijah enters the liturgy at Havdalah, the transition from Shabbat to the new week. And then, of course, at this climax of the Passover Seder, when we opened the door for Elijah, not long before we say, L'Shana Haba'ad Yerushalayim, with our Messianic hope next year in Jerusalem. So Elijah comes in after the Crusades, and we have this very powerful reference, this looking toward hope. What's interesting in the history of our Reform movement, and I turn now to text number 4, another piece of commentary on the Haggadah, this from Rabbi Carol Balin, a wonderful Reform rabbi and scholar of Jewish history. Some of us watching and praying together this morning actually were raised on the Union Haggadah, that little gray book. Rabbi Balin writes, in the Union Haggadah of 1907, Shpoch, as in Shpoch Ruchacha, that passage to pour out our wrath on our enemies, that's absent. And she notes, Elijah is relegated to an explanatory appendix. In other words, in 1907, the reformers in the United States, so that's in the first 30 or so, 35 years of reform, American Reform Judaism, basically took Elijah out too. Probably they were uncomfortable with the messianic stuff of it, because our early reformers, even through today, said we're not looking at a personal Messiah. We're looking toward a messianic time we bring about. But in 1943, in the Union Haggadah, they added what she describes as an experimental leaflet. And they put it as a dialogue. It provides a simplified explanation of Reform's notion of messianism. Cantor Goldstein, in this little dialogue, would you be the child and I'll be the reader, and we can do this back and forth?
Sure.
In the 1943 Reform Haggadah, Union Haggadah, the child asks,
why does Elijah come?
The reader answers, he comes in answer to Israel's prayer. Again and again has our lot seemed utterly without hope. In this darkest night, our fathers were comforted by the hope of the coming of the Messiah. They believed that a better world would come with him, a world in which Israel would love and dignity and in peace.
When will this world be a better place? Or when will this better world come? Maybe both.
Both. I think they're the same, actually. That is a mystery in the keeping of God. But when it comes, Elijah will be its herald. Before the messianic day comes, the spirit of Elijah must live in the hearts of men. And of course, that would mean all people, but it was 1943, so it says men. And the child asks,
Elijah come? I do not see him.
So think about that. Elijah enters our liturgy in a liminal time, a time of devastation, a time of really hopelessness for many, a liminal time, a time of transition, and the future is uncertain. So where are we today?
As I was looking at these texts that you prepared, Rabbi Green, I was struck by the notion that that when the Israelites were waiting for this sign, they were the Leil Shimurim in Exodus chapter 14. I mean, excuse me, chapter 12, verse 42, where there's this whole notion of that the night before was a night of watching, and what had happened right before that was that all the men were circumcised because they had lost touch with who they were, as they weren't connected, and so here they were circumcised, and so you can see then the link to Brit Milah and this notion of this radical transition from that of being the slave, linked to a completely different culture, completely different ways of living, and then becoming attached to, linked to God, and that shift, and how the notion of circumcision, the notion of Elijah, then all sorts of, comes into play here quite beautifully.
Yes, those links are amazing. Just amazing. And think about Shabbat. Kendra Goldstein writes, Talmud says when everybody celebrates two Shabbatot, right? All the Jewish people celebrate two Shabbatot perfectly, and there's all sorts of stuff in that. What will happen? The Messiah will come. We can have all sorts of thoughts about whether we believe one person's going to come in as a Messiah, but throughout our tradition, for whether we believe in a messianic time or a Messiah, our tradition is clear that we have to work together in that. And so Shabbat is looked at as a foretaste of the Messiah. There's the connection, as you mentioned, between Egypt and the bris. There's also the potential in every child. The day before we were told to stay at home, the last life cycle event that I participated in for that outside of my home in the synagogue was a bris. And as these wonderful parents put this baby on Kisei Shel Eliyahu, on Elijah's chair at the bris, and I said to them, this child could have the potential to fix our world, or has the potential. Who knows what this child will do in his world? So there's the potential, there's the liminality. And then at the Seder, because Elijah gives us the connection to history and the future. It gives us hope. As we think about that, I share with you very powerful words written 2 years ago by my dear friend, Rabbi Aaron Pankin. Aaron was I worked with Aaron and became dear friends with Aaron when I was a rabbinic student, and he was the president of the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion when he was killed tragically 2 years ago. So this was his Passover message really in the last few weeks of his life. He didn't know that. And these words were actually brought to me this week by his wife, also a dear friend. Aaron wrote, "This festival reminds us that even the darkest times can come to an end through the action of young and old, divine and human, working in concert. This Pesach, even as we rejoice at our redemption so long ago, let us redouble our efforts to ensure that the redemption we seek today does not elude our grasp." Aaron had a gift of taking great scholarship and text and bringing it to wonderful, insightful, accessible meaning and bringing pragmatism with it. And what is this message? To take the lessons of our history and remember that we're partners in bringing that redemption. It's not just looking out there to God, but we have to work together, which is certainly the message of Aleinu in our service, and into the phrase Tikkun Olam that so many of us know, that we need to partner together in repairing our world. And in Torah, in Leviticus 19, not this week's portion, but Leviticus 19, in the Torah portion, Kiddushim, we have a reminder, or really a commandment, that says that we should be holy, for God is holy. What does that say? Because we have the ability to be holy. Kendra Goldstein, you're about to speak. I'm sorry.
I think what occurs to me as I was hearing the beautiful words by our beloved leader, Aaron Pankin. I think that this notion of, we often think about redemption, but sometimes we lose sight that redemption in and of itself is meaningless if we don't follow it up with some commitment, some level of service back to the Redeemer, and so our tradition is so beautiful in that in these weeks now between Passover and Shavuot, our focus is towards building to the acknowledgement and the acceptance of what is our obligation, what will we do now that we're free, and what does the redemption mean, and all the more so in this period of time when there are so many things that are up in the air, that are without any sense of understanding of where they will go. Our job is to redouble our efforts, as Rabbi Pankin says, in the work that we need to do, and it's such an important message. It was important then; it's even more important today.
And it's easy for us to just give in. I mean, it's way easy to be overwhelmed and say, well, I can't do anything. Which is why I began to cite Leviticus 19, Kedoshim, which says, be holy, for I am your eternal God, I'm holy. We're not told, well, you're holy instantaneously. We're given a to-do list in Kedoshim about being holy, honoring our parents, keeping Shabbat, taking care of the needy in our midst, celebrating our holidays. A Torah portion that actually is pretty connected to this portion for the holiday, because this week we read from Ki Tisa, which is about the second set of commandments, right? The golden calf, but after the golden calf, really, when Moses gets the second set of commandments after the first ones are shattered at Sinai. We read that portion this week specifically because there's a reference to Passover. There's also this incredibly powerful portion that is traditionally chanted in the festival liturgy in Exodus 34, which is the last text on your page if you're looking. It says, the Lord came down in a cloud. He stood with them there and proclaimed the name Lord. The Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in kindness and faithfulness, extending kindness to the 1,000th generation, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin. Words that we've heard on high holy days, and now I read you that piece in Hebrew. Adonai, Adonai, el rachum v'chanun, erech apayim v'rav chesed v'emet, noser chesed la'alafim, noser avon v'fesha v'chata'a v'nakeh. We're not God. These are the attributes that God speaks of God's self, as one bat mitzvah a few years ago talked about in God's not so humble stage. But I think that in that God being not so humble is that lofty goal for us to be like God, to help bring about redemption, that we too can aim for compassion, for graciousness. We can endeavor to be slow to anger, to be generous with kindness, to be faithful, and to be forgiving. We all enable those traits in ourselves, enact those traits in ourselves. We too can partner in redemption.
Well, it's such a hopeful text when you think about the context of it. We just had the building of the golden calf and the worshiping of the golden calf, and what God of earlier parts of the Torah might have done would have been just killed everyone for having violated the prime directive of do not set an idol before you, and so here we have this message of hope, of possibility, of redemption, and so what a beautiful message during the festival of Passover, the festival of redemption, that we see a God of compassion, a God that gives us the possibility to go on, even if the act is remembered. It's remembered with the allowance of giving us the possibility to do something better with our lives.
And so I close echoing what you just said, Kendra Goldstein, with that reminder from the 1943 Union Haggadah. Before the Messianic day comes, the spirit of Elijah must live in the hearts of all people. Indeed, the spirit of Elijah to bring about a better world does live in all of us. It is up to us to take Elijah's spirit and inspire us to act in these ways, with compassion and graciousness, with forgiveness, with kindness, with faithfulness. May this be our will. May God give us the strength to carry out these traits in our actions, in our words and deeds. Shabbat Shalom.
Ken Yehi Ratzon.
We turn to memory. The Kaddish is on page 294 in your Sidurim, in your prayer books. First, we pause to remember. The Shabbat. We remember those for whom we mourn in the period of Shloshim, those who died in the last month. Luke Freden, Susan Kentoff, Beatrice Mann, Susan Sherman, Alan Steinberg. And we remember those whose yahrzeit fall this week, the anniversary of whose death we recall this week. Emmanuel Eland, Harvey C. Amsterdam, Stephen Amsterdam, Roberta Bauman, Judith Beck Stein, Arnold W. Bairstock, Edith Bayless, Michelle Bergman, Gertrude Brostoff, Jay Byron, Louis Davidson, Abraham H. Delson, Dr. Henry Dillon, Simon Edelstein, Margie Eisenberg, Lena Pearl Elfenbaum, Maurice Jordan Feinblatt, Sydney S. Fine, Millie S. Friedman, Sandra J. Golden, Harry Goldstein, Daniel A. Goldman, Robert Green, Ruth Green, Tessie Grosby, Robert Emmanuel Herzog, Daniel Robert Hirsch, Richard R. Hirsch, Jay Holtzman, Herman Jacobs, Lucille Kahn, Lee Karen, Elaine Kirsten, Ralph Klemperer, Sidney Kogan, Ted Kopelman, Edward Kovitz, Peter Leshin, Alfred M. Levin, Felix Marco, Adrian Marks, Dr. Edward Mason, Murray M. Mattinson, Leon Matisoff, Raymond Mesereau, Lenore Pankow Meyerhoff, Dr. Alfred E. Miller, Edith W. Missner, A. Jerome Moose, Trudy Muller, Harry Naftalis, Celia Ostrov Newman, Esther Goldman Newman, Daniel Podolsky, Rabbi David Polish, Gladys Rhine, Lee G. Reinisch, Leon Resnick, Sally Rosen, Bess Rosenblatt, Dr. Edward Salinas, Elizabeth Sanders, Dr. Arthur Schatzman, Fred B. Schwartz, Dr. Robert I. Sherman, David Schiffman, Loretta Short, Faye Sobel, Edith Summer, Anita Stone, Lionel Takeff, Sidney J. Taylor, Ida Fabiu, Phyllis Tinsley, Ann S. Trossman, Genevieve Cushion Wise, Regina Witensky, Jocelyn Zibin. Zichronam Livracha, may all of their memories be a blessing challenging and inspiring us to live as they did in their highest moments. We join as one congregation, as one family of families in the words of Kaddish. Please join with us. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach yiroteh v'yamlich machloteh, v'chayechon uv'yomechon v'chayeh d'chol Beit Yisrael, Bagala Bisman Karib Imru Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabba Muvarach Le'olam Omei Omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitrama v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dikudsha b'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'miran v'yama v'imru amen. Yehi shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May God, who blesses all of us with peace from the heavens, grant all of us here on earth peace and blessing. We join together in singing those words, powerful words of song, prayer for peace.
Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. 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 Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach, Mo'adim L'Simcha. May the coming days of Pesach be meaningful in our thoughts, prayers, and actions toward redemption and peace. Shabbat Shalom.